Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that affects many of us: trauma dumping versus venting. In our fast-paced, emotionally charged world, understanding the difference between these two forms of emotional expression is crucial for maintaining healthy relationships and protecting our mental health. So, what exactly is trauma dumping? Trauma dumping occurs when someone shares their traumatic experiences in an unfiltered, overwhelming manner. This often happens without considering the listener's capacity to handle such intense information. It's like pouring out your deepest, darkest emotions onto someone without checking if they're ready or able to support you. On the other hand, venting is a way to release pent-up emotions. It's a healthier form of emotional expression that typically involves mutual consent and consideration for the listener's feelings. When you vent, you're sharing your frustrations or concerns in a way that's balanced and mindful of the other person's emotional space. But why does this distinction matter? The key difference lies in the emotional impact and context. Trauma dumping can leave the listener feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or even traumatized themselves. It can strain relationships and create emotional distance. Venting, however, can lead to relief and better understanding, fostering closer connections and mutual support. In this video, we'll explore the effects of trauma dumping on the listener and the relationship, signs that you might be trauma dumping, and how to recognize when boundaries are being crossed. We'll also share practical strategies for both the dumper and the listener to avoid or stop trauma dumping, ensuring healthier and more supportive communication. Stay tuned as we unravel the complexities of trauma dumping and venting, and provide you with the tools to navigate these challenging conversations effectively. Let's dive in. Trauma dumping occurs when someone shares their traumatic experiences in an overwhelming and often unsolicited manner. This type of sharing is typically unfiltered and intense, leaving the listener feeling inundated with heavy emotions. Unlike venting, which involves a balanced exchange and mutual consent, trauma dumping is one-sided and lacks consideration for the listener's emotional state or capacity to help. Imagine a scenario where you meet a friend for coffee, and within minutes, they begin to recount every distressing detail of a recent traumatic event. They talk continuously, providing graphic descriptions and emotional outpourings without pausing to see how you're reacting or if you're prepared to handle such intense information. This is a classic example of trauma dumping. One key characteristic of trauma dumping is the absence of boundaries. The person sharing often doesn't gauge whether the listener is in the right mindset or space to absorb such heavy content. This can be particularly problematic in casual or inappropriate settings, like social gatherings or brief encounters, where the listener may not be equipped to offer the needed support. Trauma dumping can stem from a desperate need for validation or an overwhelming urge to offload emotional burdens. However, it's essential to understand that while expressing trauma is crucial for healing, the manner and context in which it's shared make a significant difference. Unchecked trauma dumping can not only harm the listener but also hinder the healing process for the person sharing, as it often lacks the constructive feedback or empathy that a more structured conversation could provide. Recognizing trauma dumping is the first step towards addressing it. Being mindful of how and when you share your experiences can lead to more supportive and effective communication, ensuring both parties feel respected and understood. In the next chapter, we'll delve into what constitutes healthy venting and how it differs from trauma dumping. Venting is a healthier form of emotional expression that allows individuals to release their frustrations, concerns, or stress in a balanced and considerate manner. Unlike trauma dumping, venting involves a level of mutual consent and understanding between the person sharing and the listener. It's a way to let off steam without overwhelming the other person. Imagine you've had a rough day at work. You call a close friend and say, "Do you have a moment to chat? I need to get something off my chest." Your friend agrees, and you share your frustrations, keeping the conversation balanced and respectful of their time and emotional bandwidth. This is a typical example of venting. Key to venting is the element of mutual respect and empathy. Before diving into your concerns, you check if the other person is in a good place to listen. This ensures that your sharing does not come as an emotional ambush. Venting also tends to be more focused on seeking support or advice, rather than simply offloading all your emotional burdens. Healthy venting sessions are often marked by pauses, allowing the listener to offer feedback or empathy. The conversation is reciprocal, meaning the listener can also share their thoughts or similar experiences. This exchange fosters a sense of connection and understanding, strengthening the relationship. Another important aspect of venting is its context. It typically happens in appropriate settings and at suitable times, ensuring that the listener is prepared and willing to engage in the conversation. For instance, venting might occur during a dedicated catch-up session with a friend, rather than unexpectedly during a brief encounter. By practicing healthy venting, individuals can maintain their emotional well-being and nurture their relationships. It's a way to express emotions constructively, paving the way for empathy and support. In the next chapter, we'll explore the key differences between trauma dumping and venting, highlighting why understanding these distinctions is crucial for healthy communication. Understanding the differences between trauma dumping and venting is essential for maintaining healthy relationships and emotional well-being. While both involve sharing emotional experiences, the key distinctions lie in the approach, impact, and context of the communication. Trauma dumping is characterized by an overwhelming, unfiltered release of traumatic experiences without regard for the listener's readiness or capacity to handle such information. It often occurs unexpectedly and can leave the listener feeling drained, stressed, or even traumatized. This type of sharing is usually one-sided, with the dumper focusing solely on their need to offload their emotions without considering the effect it has on the listener. In contrast, venting is a balanced and considerate form of emotional expression. When venting, the individual shares their frustrations or concerns in a way that respects the listener's emotional space. Venting typically involves mutual consent, with the person seeking to vent asking if the listener is available and willing to hear them out. The conversation is more controlled and allows for an exchange of support and empathy. One major difference between the two is the intent and outcome. Trauma dumping is often driven by a need for immediate relief or validation, with little thought given to the listener's well-being. This can lead to a breakdown in communication and strain relationships. Venting, on the other hand, aims to foster understanding and support. It allows both parties to engage in a meaningful dialogue, strengthening their bond and promoting emotional health. Context also plays a significant role. Trauma dumping can happen in inappropriate settings, such as during casual social events or brief encounters, catching the listener off guard. Venting usually occurs in a more suitable context, where both parties have agreed to the conversation and are prepared to engage. Recognizing these differences is crucial for developing healthier communication habits. By understanding and practicing mindful sharing, individuals can ensure their emotional needs are met without compromising the well-being of their relationships. In the next chapter, we'll delve into the effects of trauma dumping on the listener and how it impacts their mental health. The effects of trauma dumping on the listener can be profound and far-reaching, impacting their mental and emotional well-being. When someone trauma dumps, they unload a heavy emotional burden onto the listener, often without warning or consideration for the listener's capacity to process such intense information. This can lead to several negative consequences for the person on the receiving end. First and foremost, the listener may experience emotional overwhelm. Being bombarded with graphic details of someone else's trauma can evoke strong emotional reactions, including stress, anxiety, and even secondary trauma. This phenomenon, known as vicarious trauma, occurs when the listener begins to feel the emotional weight of the trauma as if they had experienced it themselves. Additionally, trauma dumping can lead to emotional burnout. Repeatedly listening to intense, distressing stories without adequate support or respite can drain the listener's emotional reserves. Over time, this can result in feelings of fatigue, irritability, and emotional numbness, making it difficult for the listener to manage their own emotions and responsibilities effectively. The impact on mental health can also be significant. The constant exposure to distressing content can exacerbate existing mental health issues or trigger new ones, such as depression or anxiety. The listener may find themselves ruminating on the trauma, struggling to sleep, or feeling persistently anxious or on edge. Moreover, trauma dumping can strain the relationship between the dumper and the listener. The listener might begin to feel resentful, used, or undervalued, especially if they perceive that their own emotional needs are being ignored. This can lead to a breakdown in communication, decreased trust, and emotional distance. In summary, trauma dumping can have serious repercussions for the listener, affecting their emotional and mental health and straining their relationship with the dumper. Recognizing these effects is the first step towards developing healthier communication strategies. In the next chapter, we will explore how trauma dumping impacts relationships and what can be done to mitigate these effects. Trauma dumping can significantly impact relationships, often leading to strain and emotional distance. When one person consistently unloads their traumatic experiences without regard for the listener's emotional state, it creates an imbalance that can erode the foundation of trust and mutual respect that healthy relationships are built on. One major impact is the development of emotional fatigue in the listener. Being constantly exposed to someone else's trauma can be overwhelming, causing the listener to feel emotionally drained and stressed. This fatigue can make it challenging for them to offer the support and empathy that the dumper seeks, leading to frustration on both sides. The imbalance in the relationship dynamics can also lead to resentment. The listener may begin to feel that their own emotional needs are being neglected, as the focus is continuously on the dumper's issues. This one-sided interaction can cause the listener to feel undervalued and unsupported, breeding resentment and discontent. Furthermore, trauma dumping can create a sense of helplessness in the listener. When faced with repeated, intense emotional outpourings, the listener may feel incapable of providing adequate support or solutions. This sense of helplessness can be distressing and may result in the listener distancing themselves to protect their own emotional well-being. The breakdown in communication is another significant impact. Effective communication is crucial for maintaining healthy relationships, and trauma dumping disrupts this balance. The listener might become reluctant to engage in conversations for fear of being overwhelmed, leading to decreased interaction and a weakening of the emotional bond between the two parties. Ultimately, trauma dumping can erode the trust and intimacy that are essential for strong relationships. It's important for both parties to recognize the signs of unhealthy communication patterns and take steps to address them. In the next chapter, we will discuss the signs that you might be trauma dumping and how to identify when boundaries are being crossed, paving the way for healthier interactions. Recognizing the signs that you might be trauma dumping is crucial for fostering healthier communication in relationships. Awareness of your own behaviors can help you take proactive steps to ensure your emotional sharing is considerate and balanced. Here are some key indicators that you may be engaging in trauma dumping. One of the most evident signs is the lack of reciprocal conversation. If you find yourself talking extensively about your traumatic experiences without allowing the listener to respond or share their thoughts, it's a red flag. Trauma dumping often involves long, one-sided monologues where the focus is solely on the dumper's emotions and experiences. Another sign is sharing graphic or highly emotional details without checking if the listener is ready or willing to hear them. If you often dive into the specifics of your trauma without gauging the listener's comfort level or emotional state, this can be overwhelming and distressing for them. Frequent and intense emotional unloading is also indicative of trauma dumping. If you repeatedly bring up your trauma in conversations, especially with the same person, it can be a sign that you're using them as an outlet without considering their capacity to support you. Noticing a pattern of people avoiding conversations with you or appearing uncomfortable during discussions can also be a sign. If friends or loved ones seem to withdraw or change the subject when you begin to share, it might indicate that they feel overwhelmed or burdened by your disclosures. Lastly, feeling a compulsive need to share your trauma whenever you're feeling distressed can be a sign of trauma dumping. If you struggle to contain your emotions and feel the urge to unload them immediately, regardless of the context or the listener's readiness, this behavior needs addressing. Recognizing these signs is the first step towards changing your communication patterns. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to recognize when boundaries are being crossed and the importance of respecting those boundaries to maintain healthy relationships. Recognizing and respecting boundaries is essential for maintaining healthy and supportive relationships, especially when discussing sensitive topics like trauma. Understanding where these boundaries lie and how to respect them ensures that both parties feel safe and valued in the conversation. Here are key steps to recognize and respect boundaries. Firstly, pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues. If the listener starts to look uncomfortable, avoids eye contact, or gives short responses, these are signs they might be feeling overwhelmed. Verbally, if they try to steer the conversation to a different topic or express that they're not in the right headspace, it's crucial to acknowledge and respect their boundaries immediately. Another important aspect is seeking explicit consent before delving into heavy topics. Asking questions like, "Is it okay if I share something really personal?" Or, "Do you have the emotional bandwidth to hear about something difficult?" shows consideration for the listener's readiness and willingness to engage in such conversations. Setting time limits can also help. If you sense that you're getting into deep emotional territory, suggest setting a timer for 10 to 15 minutes. This creates a natural stopping point and prevents the conversation from becoming too overwhelming for either party. It's also essential to have open discussions about boundaries when both parties are in a calm state. Discuss and agree on what feels comfortable and manageable in terms of sharing emotional burdens. This mutual understanding can prevent boundary crossing before it happens. Respecting the listener's need for space is equally important. If someone indicates they need a break from the conversation, don't take it personally. Recognize that everyone has different emotional capacities and taking breaks can help both parties process and come back to the conversation more effectively later. By being mindful of these strategies, you can foster a respectful and empathetic environment that supports healthy communication. In the next chapter, we will discuss what the listener can do to set boundaries and protect their own emotional well-being when they find themselves being dumped on. As a listener, setting boundaries is vital to protecting your own emotional well-being and maintaining a balanced relationship. Here are some effective strategies to set and enforce boundaries when you find yourself on the receiving end of trauma dumping. Firstly, assert your limits clearly and kindly. It's important to communicate your boundaries without feeling guilty. You might say, "I want to support you, but I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Can we talk about something else?" Or, "I'm not in the right headspace to handle this conversation at the moment." Use I statements to express your feelings and needs. For example, I feel anxious when we discuss intense topics without warning. Can we plan a time to talk about this when I'm more prepared? This approach focuses on your feelings without blaming the other person, making it easier for them to understand and respect your boundaries. Suggest alternative ways for the dumper to process their emotions. Encourage them to seek professional help or find other support systems. You might say, "It sounds like you're dealing with a lot. Have you considered talking to a therapist about this?" Set physical and emotional limits. If the conversation becomes too intense, it's okay to take a break. You can say, "I need to step away for a bit," and then follow through by taking some time to yourself. This helps prevent emotional burnout and gives you space to recharge. Establish and stick to time boundaries. If you decide to engage in a heavy conversation, set a specific amount of time for it. You could say, "I can talk for 15 minutes about this, but then I need to focus on other things." This helps keep the conversation contained and manageable. Practice self-care after intense conversations. Engage in activities that help you relax and recharge, such as going for a walk, practicing mindfulness, or talking to someone else about your feelings. Taking care of your emotional health ensures that you can continue to be a supportive friend or loved one. By setting and enforcing these boundaries, you can maintain your well-being while still offering support. In the next chapter, we will explore strategies for both the dumper and the dumpee to avoid or stop trauma dumping, fostering healthier communication habits. Both the dumper and the listener play important roles in avoiding or stopping trauma dumping. By practicing self-awareness and empathy, both parties can contribute to more balanced and respectful communication. Here are some strategies for each. For the dumper, 1. Practice self-regulation. Before sharing your emotions, take a moment to assess your feelings. Are you in a state where you can share without overwhelming the listener? If not, consider journaling or other forms of self-reflection to process your emotions first. 2. Seek professional help. If you find yourself frequently needing to unload intense emotions, consider talking to a therapist. A professional can provide you with the support and tools you need to manage your emotions in a healthy way. 3. Ask for consent. Before sharing something heavy, ask the listener if they are in the right space to hear it. Respect their boundaries if they say no and find another outlet for your emotions. 4. Find other outlets. Engage in activities that help you process your emotions, such as exercise, art, or meditation. Having multiple outlets can prevent you from relying solely on others for emotional support. For the listener, 1. Set clear boundaries. Communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively. Let the dumper know when you're feeling overwhelmed and need a break from intense conversations. 2. Offer alternative support. Encourage the dumper to seek professional help or talk to other friends or family members. Let them know that while you care about them, you may not always be the best person to support them in certain situations. 3. Practice active listening. When the dumper is sharing, focus on listening without judgment. Validate their feelings and offer empathy, but also gently guide the conversation if it starts to become overwhelming. 4. Take care of yourself. After a heavy conversation, take time to practice self-care. Engage in activities that help you relax and recharge, and don't hesitate to seek support from others if you need it. By implementing these strategies, both the dumper and the listener can contribute to more balanced and respectful communication, fostering healthier relationships overall. In this video, we've explored the complex dynamics of trauma dumping and venting, highlighting the importance of mindful and respectful communication in maintaining healthy relationships. Trauma dumping, characterized by overwhelming and unfiltered sharing of traumatic experiences, can have profound effects on the listener, leading to emotional overwhelm, burnout, and strained relationships. In contrast, Venting is a more balanced and considerate form of expression that fosters mutual understanding and support. Recognizing the signs of trauma dumping, setting boundaries, and practicing empathy are key for both the dumper and the listener. By respecting each other's emotional boundaries and seeking alternative outlets for support, individuals can engage in more constructive and supportive communication. It's important to remember that while sharing our emotions is crucial for healing, how we share them matters. By practicing self-awareness, empathy, and respect for boundaries, we can cultivate healthier and more meaningful connections with those around us. Thank you for watching, and we hope this video has provided you with valuable insights into navigating difficult conversations. Thank you for joining us on this enlivening journey. We hope you've gained valuable insights into healthy communication. Keep watching for more engaging content, and remember, effective communication is the key to stronger, more meaningful relationships. Subscribe for regular updates, and until next time, keep communicating mindfully. Have a wonderful day.